Welcome to week 1 of the Sodoma developer log on Two Shots in the Dark, a cyberpunk horror game where you play as a criminal in the colony on Venus. Last week I established an outline of my plan, what is to be expected from this project, and mainly what is to be expected of me. And without wasting time, directly onto the main course, over the past week I've spent time polishing the vault mechanic I implemented last weekend. I followed the tutorial link down below and basically had to do the following within the blueprints, and it's a lot. There's a lot of booleans and vector variables and way too much math within the nodes to really explain fully, so I'll just gloss over everything. It starts out by the event graph receiving the input, which in this case is left click, which I'll explain why it's set to left click later. It then processes some math with a lot of vectors. Overall, it determines whether or not what you're facing is indeed a wall and if it's short enough to climb or vault over. Then it arrives at a point where it branches off to two ways. Is it climbable or not? By this, it asks if it's tall enough to be able to climb instead of vault. If false, it moves onto a separate path where it executes the vaulting animation, as well as do some math to properly shift the player and the camera onto the other side. The other path involves mostly the same principle, executing the climbing animation, but also checks to see if the section you climbed is too thin to realistically stand on. If it happens to check those two boxes, then it plays a falling animation right after climbing. So it's pretty much a vault on a taller wall. If that last box isn't checked, you just climb and get set on top of whatever you just climbed on. All of that is compressed into this tiny little node which activates when the left click is pressed. Of course, there's a lot of other stuff I glossed over or simplified for the sake of time, so if you want to replicate this, go to the tutorial that I followed to make this, which is linked below. Onto one of the other things I was working on this week, wall running. I went over a lot of tutorials I could find and followed a lot of them by the books and arrived at one that works wonders. Pretty much it relies on the jump mechanic. The jump node is replaced by a do end node that feeds into a switch, which feeds into a launch node. Here I'm able to edit how high the character jumps directly. Of course I could have done the rest of the wall run without replacing the jump node, but I wanted this here in order to make the jump fairly low. Set at 250, you can't just jump over stuff you're meant to vault over. If you can do that, then there's no point on having the vault mechanic and things go at a faster pace than what I want them to be. Back to wall running, the node streak here pretty much detects our input, checks to see what direction the camera is going, where the character is going, and then locks us onto the z-axis and suspends our gravity in order for the player to not gain any height during the wall run. A capsule around our player is set to detect when a wall is around us. If it detects a wall, it detects if it's marked with the tag of run wall. If we hit the spacebar when a wall is detected and we're falling, and we're moving forward, and the wall is tagged with run wall, we get thrusted into a loop which sticks us to the wall and moves us forward with a certain amount of time, and to my relief, it's working. Of course, there's more things I need to work on with this feature. I need to add an animation and tweak the physics so that I stop running after a certain point, and I'm not just flung forward when I get off the wall. Again, the tutorial I followed is linked below. There is a part 2 to the tutorial, so once I follow that, I'll hopefully run into some of my solutions and have this mechanic polished. Now back to the vault being set to left click. The reason for that is because if I have both vault and jump set to spacebar, there's certain times where the animations just conflict with each other and it's a whole mess to deal with visually. What I plan to do is have some sort of system that disables the jump feature anytime there's a vaultable or climbable object directly in front of you, but that may conflict with the wall run, so I'll take the time to look into that. Onto the third feature I've been working on, I want to implement a scanning feature that originates from an object on your character. Originally I was going to have it similar to Ada Wong's scanner from Resident Evil 2, where you have to hold the scanner to see the objects, but I'll be honest, I don't know how to do that. So as always, I followed a tutorial that showed me how to do the following. Have a material that takes the world position to place the scan texture around the world in the right places and on the right axis. Then take the camera position to make sure that you're not outside of the origin scan. A lot of other nodes are here for calculation, but the real feature is in the radius parameter, which when paired with the hardness, then feeding into the sphere mask, and then to a sign node, we get a ring. The ring moves relative to the camera. Objects that are meant to be scanned have custom depth enabled with a stencil set at a value of 1 through 4. We can see them through walls now, with other parameters and such matching the values in the stencils. These objects can be highlighted properly. Yes, the nodes nearing the end of the material look like an Olive Garden dish, but there's a reason for this. The purpose of this mess is to determine what stencil values have which color. The lerp node gets fed by all the prior nodes except for the normal color, and then for the B input, it gets fed a color parameter. For the alpha, it's fed a bit mask with a constant for the bit, which corresponds to the stencil value. The bit mask is multiplied with other nodes in order to see the detail within the highlighted objects. Of course, we can change the constant to a parameter and delete the duplicate nodes, and then just make instances of the base material, but that involves making more material instances, which is more intensive on resources than a dozen more nodes. Of course, this isn't my best node organization, so I'll definitely take time to sort them out this week. Then finally, in the event graph, we have a key input, which feeds into a timeline, which also activates our scan for 2 seconds, and it is looking absolutely incredible. Of course, there's more I'd love to share, but I'll save that for the next devlog once those mentioned things are further into development. Before I publish the next devlog, I plan to improve on the following: the flow of animations and the camera movement, adding a wall run animation and tweaking the physics, and of course improving on the scanning feature. I also plan to start on the following features, which involve basic puzzle solving, similar to games such as in Resident Evil, walking sideways since it bothers me whenever I look down, and hanging onto ledges and shifting sideways. That's the basic plan for the next 2 weeks, so we'll see how it turns out. I bid you all adieu.